Hello everyone. I know it's a bit late in this expansion, but I decided to make a Mythic Plus guide, mainly for Holy Paladin, but it's going to be a bit in general as well, so if you're playing any other healer than Holy Paladin, I guess you can get some inputs from here. I'm going to go through legendaries, add-ons, weakauras, just whatever I think that is helpful for improving your healing in Mythic Plus. So let's get to it. Okay guys, before we head into a dungeon, I want to show a little bit about the weakauras that I use. The first one I want to talk about is the Pridas. This one shows up here in red text the damage you will absorb with your Pridas, and the white countdown here is for when it will refresh to a new shield. This is very helpful for, let's take Halls of Valor against Hersia for example. If she is about to throw a lightning bolt on you and you do not have your Pridas up, you will have to pop additional cooldowns. You can bubble, or you can use Divine Protection for 20% extra damage reduction or whatsoever. Keep in mind you have to use your Judgment as well. Many people forget about this, but if you look into your artifact weapon here, when you throw a Judgment, you take less damage for the next 4 seconds. So before a big AoE damage or big damage incoming to you, you should throw the Judgment and then maybe an additional cooldown. Okay, so the next weakaura I want to show is the Zephyr's weakaura. When your Zephyr's is a clear color, you will see it lighten up here, and it's ready to proc. So you can proc it if you're CCing him up. You can Repentance, you can Hammer of Justice, Blinding Light, Arcane Torrent, or whatsoever. You can also proc it by dispelling people. This is very useful for knowing that if necessary you can postpone one of your CCs or dispelling or whatever, so that you will get your Zephyr's proc. I find this very helpful in Mythic Plus at least. So the next thing we're gonna go through is my sets. I use mostly 4 different sets, and I have those bound to F1, F2, F3 and F4. The first one is going to be the Zephyr's. I use this very often at trash packs. It's pretty simple, just use your Zephyr's legendary, Mirage, and then I have a Horn of Valor for some DPS, and my Ishkas for a little bit of defensive. You want to try to get above 50% crit. Anything above is pretty fine. It doesn't matter too much with the new Tier 21 set. Not so new anymore, but anyways. This is the first set I use. Second set I'm using here is my speed up set. And you might think, why not just mount? But in a lot of dungeons you cannot mount inside. So you will have a speed set, so you will be able to run quickly to the next boss or trash or whatsoever. For this set you want to use legendary boots and Zephyr's for extra movement speed. And you want to stack as much crit as you possibly can, and you can see right here my movement speed is 173%, so it's pretty close to ground mount speed. The third set I'm using is my survive set, I call it. I'm using the Ishkas here and my Pridas, and then of course I use Mirage because I'm a big fan of this one. The Light of Martyr heal going out to your beacons is a big deal, I think so. I'm using Iona's trinket, and the reason why I do this is just because of the intellect. It really improves your holy shocks a lot with 5k intellect. And try to get 50% crit. As you can see, I have 49% right here, which is not capped, but if I do my crit food, I am capped. The very last set I want to go through is my DPS set. Not many people do like this, but in my DPS set for single target, I use the belt and the talent ring. The reason why I use the talent ring is because of the extra holy shock procs. In this set, I'm not crit capped at all. I have 46%, but I think that the ring here will make up for the missing crit. In this set, you do not really wanna heal because you cannot really 100% rely on your holy shocks, so use this set if you are against a boss that doesn't require a lot of healing. So people have been asking me about my rotation. The thing is, there's not a rotation that you can follow 100%, but I'm gonna try to tell a bit what I do. You want to use your Holy Shock whenever you can. If not for healing, you want to use it for damage. And your Light of Dawn as well, since it gives that 10% extra healing to whoever it hits in your party. And in the meantime, you want to use your Flash of Light as much as you can, and Holy Light if you need mana. But personally, I use Flash of Light the most, maybe 80% of the times. And Light of Martyr is really good if a party member suddenly takes damage. You want to instantly top them. It's like a bit of a panic heal, but I tend to abuse that one a lot. And since I use Mirage, try to every time you use Light of Dawn, throw a Light of the Martyr after it. So the last thing I want to show before we head into the dungeon is when should you use which beacon. Beacon of Virtue is very strong if there's like a short window of big burst, but if the burst lasts longer than the Beacon of Virtue's uptime, you're kind of screwed, so you want to go with Beacon of Faith. So for example, let's take Upper Kara. If you're against Medivh in the Flame Reef, Beacon of Virtue is not going to last through the whole Flame Reef, so on high keys you're kind of screwed when it comes to Beacon of Virtue. If you go with Beacon of Faith, you will be able to place both beacons on the people that has the Flame Reef, and then you will be able to spam heal them a lot, and you will save a lot of mana, and you will heal both beacons all the time. So for this dungeon I would have used Beacon of Faith. Basically any dungeon where Beacon of Virtue's window will not cover, you want to go with Beacon of Faith. Okay guys, so what I want to show here is basically my setup. I'm trying to keep everything simple, so for specific healing I don't have any add-ons for that. I'm using the basic Blizzard raid frames, and I'm placing them here at the left as you can see, and then I have my Holy Paladin hut underneath. So I'm trying to keep like everything in a pretty close range, so I don't have to look too much around on my screen, so I can focus in the middle of it. Since I'm not using any add-ons for healing, I do use some mouse over macros. I do not use mouse over macros for every single spell that I have. I use it for defensive cooldowns, for example, like Sacrifice, Bob, Lay on Hands, Freedom, and stuff like that. The reason being that I'm not using mouse over macros for every single spell is that I'm using the right click a lot on my mouse to like turn my camera and to move my character. So if I did mouse over macro for every single spell, I would not be able to like move around correctly. But that's just how I feel. If you are comfortable using mouse over macro for every single spell, that is perfectly fine. What you will see in the top here is the weak aura called Quaking. It's in the very top. Quaking has an interval of 20 seconds. It might come, it might not come. It's a bit RNG, but this will show when it can come. So you can prepare for like if a boss is about to do a mechanic while Quaking is coming, so it's gonna do even more damage. So if that's the case, you can use Aura Mastery, which is gonna reduce your all party members damage by 20%, and then you will probably survive that Quaking and mechanic combo. An important thing for healers in Mythic Plus on very high keys is to help as much as you can with DPSing. So if you have glaives, you should use them on big packs to help out a little bit on the DPS, so you can save time in total. I do not have glaives, so I'm focusing a lot on my single target damage to help on the bosses. Since this is a guide on how to heal in Mythic Plus, I'm not going through all the tactics and pull we're doing in this dungeon. I'm just gonna fast forward to the boss, and then let's take it from here. In Mythic Plus, you wanna have some sets with avoidance. Avoidance reduces the damage taken by AoE spells, which is very helpful for Quaking, the second boss here in Court of Stars, and the last boss. there's consistent AoE damage, and 20% damage reduction is a really big deal. On the first boss I decided to take Marats and Zephus for legendaries. Zephus is because he will do arcane lock on every party member in the group, and if you dispel one of them you will proc your Zephus, and that can also help you increase your damage. What you want to do versus this boss is you pre-pop freedom on one of your teammates and then you dispel another one. In this case right here we have a hunter and the rogue. They can the rogue can jump, or he can cloak if he wants. The hunter can disengage, and the DK tank can also just jump. So I'm freedoming Servo, the warlock, and then I'm dispelling myself. For trinkets against this boss I used Horn of Valor and High-Fire trinket. There's no specific reason for the High-Fires, but I didn't really have any other trinket at this point that I could use instead. I would probably have taken one for extra DPS. I'm using Horn of Valor as well, and that is basically just because of the flat versatility, and then you have the intellect buff for 30 seconds, which lines pretty good up with your wings. There is one big mistake that I have made in this dungeon, but at this point I didn't really know any better. Best of Faith, you should never really take it unless it's very, very hard to heal. You should go with Crusader's Might in this dungeon. You would be able to do maybe, I don't know, 400k more overall DPS or something like that. It's gonna be huge at least. So that's what you want to go with mainly for Mythic Plus dungeons. What I mainly do on trash packs is that I use Zephus, because it really helps you out, especially if this was a bursting week. You can proc your Zephus right before all the trash is about to die, and you will gain that extra 25% haste, which will make it a lot easier to heal out the bursting stacks. But in this case right here, I'm just using it for faster heals and quicker DPS. While we're waiting for the next boss, I want to talk a bit about potions. Mainly I'm using Prolonged Power, and that is because of the intellect that will benefit your Holy Shocks. But what you could do is to use a Potion of the Old War going into a boss fight, and then when your pot is ready again, you're gonna use a Prolonged Power. The reason for the Potion of the Old War is because your Crusader strikes that is gonna proc the Potion of the Old War, and you're gonna do a lot of damage. I think maybe 6 million, maybe even more, doing this Potion of the Old War window. Going into the next boss here, I'm using Villains and Marats for legendaries. The reason why I'm using Villains is because you have to use Beacon of Virtue in this dungeon. The reason being is because the second boss and last boss has some really heavy AoE damage that you only will be able to out-heal with Beacon of Virtue. The downside of Beacon of Virtue is that you have a downtime in 7 seconds, and during those 7 seconds you're kind of fucked. That's why you want to use your Velen trinket here. You could use Zephus as well to proc for when you're not having your beacons up, but in this case I'm using Velens and Arcana Crystal for trinkets. The Velens will give you 15% extra healing, and any overhealing will go to other party members in your group, which will help you a lot here. And you can alternate a bit between that and the Death Knight's Leech, which is also a huge deal versus this boss fight. What you can do if you're about to run out of healing cooldowns is that you can bubble yourself then you can sacrifice a party member. And one thing you also could do is that if you know Quaking is about to come and you have to get your next cast off because the team is getting low or something like that, you can bob yourself, because Quaking is physical damage. So you will not be interrupted if you bob yourself, and then you can free cast as much as you want. What you could do here is to equip your Ishkas trinket. It drops from the third boss in Taurus. It gives an absorb shield about 3.5 million damage at item level 950. It's basically used when you can prevent a one-shot from happening. The absorb shield is scaled with versatility, so the more versatility that you have, the bigger the shield you can give a party member. So for the last boss here, I'm going to use Marauds and Zephyrs. The cloak is really helpful when you're going with Beacon of Virtue, because it will make your Light of the Martyr heal your party members as well. The reason why Zephyrs is such a huge deal right here is because that you can force it. If the tank is running into one of those winds on the ground, he will get stunned and you can dispel him. That you want to do right before the Slicing Maelstrom, because you'll gain that extra haste, which will make it a lot easier to heal through the big AoE damage. So what you want to do with a Blood DK is that you want to alternate between Leech and Zephyrs between every single Slicing Maelstrom. That is gonna help you a lot, but it's not quite enough. You have to pop an additional cooldown every single Slicing Maelstrom. So again, at this boss, you want to maybe start out with your artifact cooldown, going into Holy Avenger, going into Wings, going into Aura Mastery, back into your artifact and Holy Avenger, and then the boss should be pretty much dead by then. Keep in mind that the order I just set those cooldowns is not necessarily the order you have to use them, because in this case we have Quaking, so if Quaking is at a really bad timing, you might want to use your Aura Mastery way before Wings, for example. The thing that I actually didn't do in this clip right here was to use Light of Dawn before the Slicing Maelstrom. You should do that to get that extra 10% increased healing, which will help you a lot during the big AoE damage. You have to keep in mind that if you're about to run out of cooldowns, every single party member in your team has a personal cooldown that they can use. In this case we have a Warlock as well, which provides us health stones for everyone. So for one of the Slicing Maelstrom, if I do not have my my CDs up, if I fail my rotation or something like that, I can tell my party members to pop their health stones on the last tick of Slicing Maelstrom, for example. That is helping a lot. That's it guys for this tutorial. This is my very first tutorial that I ever made. I might have missed out on a lot of stuff, and in case I did, let me know. I will try to answer your questions. When BFA is gonna be released, I'm gonna quickly make a more detailed tutorial. This one was pretty quick, only going through one dungeon. Might go through another dungeon at some point. But thanks for watching.
See you later, boy.